Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I'm going to start out by showing you this. Once in a while I bring it in, but not very often. This is called Big Dave's Fish Collar. Big Dave's Fish Collar. It's a novelty item. I've never seen one since. I ordered it because it looked like it might be kind of fun to play, and I was collecting a lot of instruments at the time. I still do, and this is what it is. Now basically, this is a kazoo. What is a kazoo? A kazoo is when you sing into the instrument. The kazoo part is right here, and you sing into it, and it muffles your voice. There's a little device in the inside. I don't know how it does it, but there's a little device and your voice comes out fuzzy. It doesn't come out like you, but it does come out in the same pitch and timing and all of that. So you have to sing into it to get it to play. You can't blow into it. You will get nothing but air. But if you sing into it, it will work. And so kids have a lot of fun with it. And it doesn't need all of this stuff here, but they made it into a novelty item by adding that. It's just basically a rubber tube, and then there's a little orange thing on the bottom. Whenever you have a part of an instrument that flares at the bottom, as this does, then that's called the bell. Saxophones have them, clarinets have a little one, French horns, trumpets, they all have bells to them. So this is Big Dave's Fish Collar. I thought it would be fun just to bring it in so you could see it. I do collect instruments, and once in a while I do like to bring them in so you can see what I've got. So anyway, let me do a quick review here on this chart with a keyboard. This is a smaller one, but it's also easier to work with, so I've decided to use it pretty much. This is a nearly full-scale keyboard. There are two keys missing. They would be down below here, but it doesn't matter for what I need to tell you because that's way down. This is your middle C. The keyboard does have 88 keys to it. This is the middle C, and I put it in pink. I put it in color so you'd be able to see it. It's not exactly in the middle of the keyboard, but it's close. It's a little to the left. There are octaves, 1, 2, 3, 4 octaves. Now this is accurate. There are 4 octaves, but there are 1, 2, 3 octaves to the left, and 2 more keys beyond what I have there. 3 octaves to the left, 4 octaves to the right, and kind of toward the middle, but toward the left is the middle C. Now, if I show you a chart like this, and sometimes I do, this section is just 2 octaves, and it would be from here to here. And most of the woodwind instruments play between here, and the flutes can go 1 octave higher, and the piano can go 1 octave higher than the flutes can. But you don't write music for this higher range, because you would have so many ledger lines you wouldn't be able to read it. So what they do is they will take this and they'll put an 8 VA, and that means play this an octave higher than it's written, and that gets you into that highest octave that the piano can do. Now, most of the instruments that we have, that I work with here in a class like this, are going to be in this range. This would include, for 1 octave, flutophones, song flutes, ocarinas, melody flutes, tonettes, some fifes, and they're 1 octave instruments. Once in a while, a pan flute will be that small. The 2 octaves are going to be recorders, penny whistles, sassotos, ocarinas, melodicas, melody flutes, some fifes, and they run into this range here. And the traditional flute will go up 1 octave higher. So that most of these treble clef instruments, which would be on the higher range, are in this range right here. And that's where we play most of our music. So let me take this down. I just want to kind of show that to you for review. And I'm going to put up some music here. and we'll dissect it. Now, we're still working with the intervals of music, and we're going to be doing this for a while because I've written music for it. And every time I write music, of course, I have to have 2 copies because I have to read it, and then you have to be able to read it. This is a very simple little song, and it's 1 step. If you look, I'll let him get that set up. If you want 1 step, here's your 1 step, and this would be a third, and there's 1 sharp in it. So just to watch it, it's a treble clef, which is where we are anyway. 1 sharp, but that puts it in the key of G. And then I put 2 and 3 rest. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4/4 is the time signature. The key signature is the F sharp. Now on this time signature, it tells you there are 4 beats to every measure, and the quarter note, which is a 4th, gets 1 beat. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4 and. So you have 4 beats to every measure. And even on the last measure, which is down here, 1, and then you have your half rest, which is 2, 3, and then your single rest, which is 4. So let me play this, and I'm not going to play it very fast, and then I'll dissect it for you, and we'll see where we are in terms of fingerings. You can learn how to play simple music, and I just want to mention, in terms of beautiful music, it doesn't have to be fast, it doesn't have to have a ton of notes, it doesn't have to be very impressive in terms of loudness to be beautiful. Some of the most beautiful music is softer, slower, and simpler. Just because a piece is simpler doesn't mean it's not worthy, and just because a piece is simpler doesn't mean it can't be beautiful. I've seen too many students at concerts. I would never let them do this when I was teaching them, but I've seen too many students at recitals and so forth try to be so impressive, and they bang out all of this music and they play all of these notes, and a lot of them are wrong because the music is too advanced for them. But they think the faster, the louder, the better. And that's just not the way it is. You know, simpler music is sometimes just as beautiful, even more beautiful than that's as loud and fast. Well, let me count this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm not going to play it very fast because I want you to follow and see if you can follow me as I play it. See, it's very short. Let me try it again. Just follow the music. Okay, so we'll count this out. When I started out, this is 4 and. 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and. Remember, the eighth notes are a half a beat. The quarter notes are a full beat. And when we get to this, 1, 2, 3, 4 and, that half note is normally 2 beats. I have a dot behind that A, and so therefore a dot means it's worth half as much as the original note. Since the original note is worth 2 beats, then this is worth 1 beat, and that whole note then becomes a 3-beat note, and then the 4th beat is 4 and. Now, in terms of fingering, I'm going to finger that D, C, B, D, and if you can follow my fingers, that will be helpful, because if the flute and the saxophones and the recorders play it a little different. Maybe I should move this a little. Maybe you can see it better. Okay, here's your D. A D on a recorder is practically no fingers at all. You have this one middle finger down. This you skip. This is open. You don't even have your thumb, you know. It's like look by almost no hands. And to put the C down, you play the D and then the C just by putting the thumb on the thumb hole in the back. And then you go to the B, which you flip and put this one down. Now the recorders and the saxophones, it's interesting that the C is actually the second hole down and the B is the top hole, because the B is lower in its note than the D is. Than the C is. C, B, C, B. The B is a lower note. It's one step lower. C, B, C, B. Now if you want C, D, here's your C. For the D, lift the thumb off or pull it down. Now the flutes will do it. That's the way the flutes will do it. And sometimes I do it that way on the recorder, but the correct fingering is this fingering. So you have got to go from that D to the C to the B, and then back to the D. So that's a little tricky. And then you go down to the G, which is all of these fingers. Remember, and when I started out, we did this. B, A, G, F, E, D. So C, D, D, C, B, D, G. And then you have the F sharp. When you go from the C to the F, you'd normally put this down or these down if it's a Baroque. F sharp, you skip this one and you do this one. There's your sharp, your F sharp. Your F natural would be that's natural song. So trying it from the top, now on this measure, low D, E, low D, high D, that's an octave. That's an octave. So when you're going to the low D, if you're a flute, which personally I think is much easier, but the correct way on the recorder, so I'm going to start from the top, playing it very slow and getting to about the midsection, and then we'll stop and I'll explain some more things. And then you see it goes back right here, like very much like what the beginning was, these notes, but then I change it here. Now, when you're playing the notes, you need to know what the fingering of the notes are. So you need to understand, here's your B, your A, G, F sharp, E, D. Now, one of the reasons when I start students out, I usually don't start them out on a C. It's harder to balance. If you're using that fingering for the D, How do you balance the instruments? I've seen more students drop instruments. It's easy to drop an instrument because of the fingerings. Well, if the instrument's in your mouth, that's going to help settle it. That's going to help balance it. And your thumb and the back, there's no special place you have to put it. There's no tone hole for it. You're not going to use it to play, but it does good. It does well in terms of balancing the instrument. And then what you can always do is to put your little finger right here, right below this kind of a design feature, right on the foot, what's called the foot of the instrument. And that helps to balance it too. The problem with playing a D is that the only finger that you're using for the D is that one finger. That's all you're using. So you have to depend upon balancing it in other ways. Now what I'm doing, excuse me, is I'm kind of creating an exercise between the D, C, B, D, and I repeat that D, C, B, D several times, but that's for the purpose of teaching you how to play it. This is why I like to write my own music for the show, because I'm going to help you to play the music that's going to teach you the fingerings that I want you to have. So if you want to do an exercise, which is just repeating notes over and over again so you get familiar as to how to finger them, you could go from D, C, B, A, B, C, D. And you have to get used to it. Now, it's familiar to me because I've done it dozens of times, but you'll notice when I do it, I have my finger down here. I have something to help balance it, and my thumb in the back. Because you slip down to that G and that F sharp. Now, when you get down to here, you have a G sharp. And I'm going to play from that B down to that G sharp. Okay, so if you just kind of watch it. No, that was the G sharp. So how do you play that G sharp? Here's the A. Where am I here? Here's the A right here. How do I play a G sharp? Well, there's a couple of ways you can play it. The most secure way would be just to put your two fingers down on your right hand. When I do that, other songs come to mind. But anyway, or you might decide to half hole it. Half holing it is a little bit more difficult because if you don't cover the whole hole, you cover part of it. And the thing is, if you don't cover it exactly right, the pitch is not going to be exactly right. So the safest thing would be to put these two fingers down. Let me see. Now, I want to go over, watching my time here, from that from that C to that E. Here's your C. Now, a low E is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those fingers are down for the low E. To get the high E, you put the thumb hole a little bit, you draw the thumb down a little bit, and that gives you an octave. So the low D to the high D, for many of the notes of the recorder, not all of them, but for many of the notes of the recorder, to get an octave, you just pull your finger down and half hole the thumb hole in the back. And so if I want to play that E, I've got to find it again here. Here's your C, here's your E, and it's the same as the low E, but I pull the thumb down a little bit so it's not completely covering, and then I jump down to the A, and then I have that G sharp again. Now you can see that it gets to be a little tricky in the fingering, no matter how simple the instrument is. It's a little tricky in the fingering. And I get people asking me all the time, what's the simplest instrument that I can learn how to play? And I always say the same thing. Well, how good do you want to be? Because every instrument, to be very good, is going to have its challenges. And that's all right. It's just a part of the music, and you get used to it. Once you know your fingerings, you see it's easier to write music because something sounds to me like an E, or it sounds like this or that or the other, or I'm doing some scale work. I know what the fingerings are. So in my mind, I can figure out, well, if I play it this way, this is the way I'm going to finger it, and does it fit with the rest of the instrument, and so forth. And it's almost like a gamble thing. You know, you figure out what you want to do and if it's going to work and how good it's going to be. So let me play this one more time and pay attention to the music and see if you can follow along. And I'll be using the traditional fingerings for the recorder. Now you also know that what I'm doing here is I'm jumping octaves from a low D to a high D. I'm going between the upper register and the lower register of this instrument. And you can do that with all instruments they have, except for like flutophones and song flutes and little ones like that. They have an upper and a lower register. And it is kind of a trick to get it to go higher, the same note but higher, or the same note but lower. You're just jumping between registers when you play this. It's not a hard song, but it has elements of fingerings that mean you really need to know how to finger, and you need to know how to time it to get it to come out right. And by teaching you, by writing something for it, I think I can teach you just as well as that. I don't want you sitting there going, you know, let's put it in a song. Let's put it in something that you can remember. And you can also get practice in fingering the other notes and counting the timing and all of that. Well, I'm going to close it here, and we'll be doing something else next time. Please join me then.